Be Well Texas helps people who are struggling with the use of alcohol or drugs. They offer high-quality, science-based addiction treatment and recovery services anywhere in Texas. Find help for you or a loved one today.
Welcome to Be Well Texas. We're glad you're here. In many cases, there is no cost for treatment if you don't have insurance. Call 888-85-BE-WELL.
Texas coaches, Coach Brackle here from First Down Playbook. After 25 years as a Texas high school football coach, I understand the time, energy, and commitment it takes to compete at your level. First Down Playbook was created by coaches for coaches to help you vertically line your total program. 1 week free team membership for all Texas high school and college coaches. Let First Down Playbook help give you that winning edge.
The Republic of Football is also brought to you by Home Field Apparel. Use promo code DCTF for 10% off your first time purchase. You can go to homefieldapparel.com for the best vintage college merch on the market right now. Again, that is promo code DCTF for 10% off your first time purchase. Hello and welcome to the Republic of Football. I'm your host, Ishmael Johnson, sitting here in studio, Louisville, Texas, alongside Carter Yates. What's up, man?
Man, it's a bittersweet day because on the one hand, previewing bowl season.
Yep.
On the other hand, it's our last studio show of the year. We'll still have the shows, but it's going to be remote Zoom from now on after this.
Yeah, exactly. Mallory, of course, in the other room, making sure you can see and hear us nicely. How you doing, Mallory?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. And, of course, on the other line, senior writer Mike Craven in Austin. How you doing, bud?
Not great, guys. I just think I realized I erased 700 words of a story I was working on.
Command Z.
Oh, no. Oh, geez.
So we're struggling over here in Austin, Texas.
Well, we'll try to cheer you up with some bowl previews. See if that gets the juices flowing to either recover it or pump it back out. I don't know exactly how that's going to work. But like Carter mentioned, next week is state championship week for us in the high school realm. So that means all hands on deck at AT&T. So of course, this time next Tuesday.
Can y'all see these bags under my eyes?
Yeah,
they're terrible.
It's been a past couple weeks.
It's been a lot.
My dark circles under my eyes are starting to extend to my eyelids.
Yeah.
Right now,
it's a lot of Sunday to Sunday work weeks right now, and so like Carter mentioned, this will be our last video episode, of course, because it'll be on hands on deck next Tuesday as we set up for the Wednesday through Saturday schedule at AT&T. So be on the lookout for the audio podcasts, right? Of course, as these bowl games happen, as these weeks go on, especially the playoff games, we'll be giving you some recaps there. But yes, in studio, this will be our last one for the year. So with that being said, give you a little bit of a rundown. Of course, we mentioned this is our bowl preview show. We'll start off with, obviously, the two playoff games, Texas and Clemson, and SMU and Penn State. And then we'll go by order of the date you will see them. So, of course, the earlier December bowl games going all the way to, I believe, North Texas and Texas State, which is the last one on January 3rd. So we'll be going in that order, give you the obvious playoff games off the top, and then we'll be going from there. And then we'll be talking, there's been a lot of news in and around a lot of these programs, so we'll be using those bowl games to talk about transfer news, coaching news, things like that. So, with that being said, want to get right into it, Mallory?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Starting off with the big dogs, the college football playoff. Number 5 Texas hosting at number 12 Clemson at DKR Stadium in Austin, Texas at 3 p.m. Central Time. You can watch it on TNT. Texas, 10.5-point favorites. The over-unders 54.5.
I don't know how I feel about a TNT college football game, by the way.
It is a little bit weird.
Do
we get Charles Barkley and Kenny the Jet previewing it?
I mean, look, they do the bracket reveal show, and they don't know much about college basketball, so like they might as well do this too.
I'd listen to Charles Barkley talk about anything, honestly.
Kenny, I don't think Quinn Ewers has the clutch gene. Anyway, no, but in all seriousness, right? I think you and Craven talked about the college football draw when it happened and the results of the SEC and the ACC championship game. I don't know. Me and you may disagree. I think me and Powers disagreed in the office a little bit. I think Texas got the good draw, especially after losing the SEC championship game. I think this Clemson team, although I would think that this is a good matchup for Texas, I do think this may be the best offense they've seen this year.
The Clemson offense?
Yes, the Clemson offense.
Well, it's a rematch of Cade Klubnik and Quinn Ewers in that.
And Michael Taft.
And Michael Taft in there,
yeah.
the one-handed interception he had.
Westlake.
From, I believe, the COVID state championship that happened in mid-January.
I was looking back on that.
In January.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. I was looking back on that roster, and I was telling Mallory, that game was loaded. Michael Taft, Jaden Greathouse was also playing for Westlake.
Greathouse, yeah.
I believe RJ Maryland and Brady Boyd were on that South Lake Carroll team.
Yeah, they both were.
I think a lot of people looked at that state championship game and said, we're going to see these guys one day in the college football playoff, but it's been a far bumpier path to that point than we originally thought of. So very interested to see that. The one thing I'll say about the draw, and I was listening to Ross Dellinger at Yahoo talk about this, if one of the criterion that the College Football Playoff Committee uses is head-to-head matchups, why is Clemson ranked behind SMU? It would have given us an intrastate matchup of Texas and SMU if SMU was the 12th seed and Clemson was the 11th seed. It was right there.
Yeah, that would have been a real. I mean, I know Craven, we can bring you in. I know that's what you were clamoring for, and we were really, really close to that. And I think one, it's obviously I think they're looking at record, right? Obviously, they're looking at SMU only losing one game, but yes, or 2 games rather. But yes, it would have been a really cool thing, and I think it was as easy as they won the head-to-head matchup, so you flipped them,
I think the thing we learned the most on Sunday was they will not punish teams for conference championship losses.
Sure.
And the reason is money. They need these conference championship weekends to remain in existence because they need as much money as they can. As revenue sharing comes, they're not looking to find less ways to make money. And if SMU gets dropped out of the playoff or Texas and Penn State get dropped out of a first-round home game, then you look around and you talk about worst-case scenario, kind of like Lashley was talking about leading into that game of, if we all just got COVID and couldn't play the game, we're in.
Right.
We're probably hosting a game. And so you could tell the committee didn't want to punish that, but it was weird seeing Clemson one spot below SMU.
Hey, can y'all still hear me right now? Because I can barely hear Craven, and I don't know if the committee just cut my mic. Can you still hear me right now?
We can still hear you.
Okay, cool.
So, but on the matchup itself, right, I think that we can take a little bit from the SMU game, obviously the second half in particular, where SMU, kind of the end of the first half, really, it was a bad start for SMU, let's put it that way. I think there's a little bit of SMU got a little too conservative at some times, especially as SMU was making their run. I think they got a little too conservative with the play calling. I think they stopped. Again, they were trying to maybe, drain the clock a little bit. So they were trying to, be a little bit more conservative with their run, what they did call in the passing game. But I think there is something to take away from SMU kind of being unstoppable in that second half, right? Literally, it came down to, Clemson getting a great kickoff return and then one pass all of a sudden, and then their kicker hits a crazy clutch field goal. So I do think this Clemson defense in particular, this pass rush, is very, very gettable for Texas. Now in the run game, that's a different story. I think they did very good against the run for SMU. But when it was obvious passing situations for SMU, they were able to exploit that pretty effectively.
Yeah, this is not the dominant Clemson teams of yesteryear, but I don't like Dabo Swinney as an underdog, and I also don't think that Texas's offense is good enough to cover a 10.5-point spread. So this is a gettable game for Clemson to get Texas right here.
I mean, I think if 2024 has taught us anything, it's that these are all gettable games. I mean, Alabama went and lost to Oklahoma. That's why they're not in this deal. So I don't think there's any huge matchup or huge discrepancies here. Clemson does have talent. I just don't think they have an elite unit like Texas does. Like Texas's defense is going to be the best unit on this football field. Clemson scores points, but they're not an offense that's going to scare Texas too much. Wesco's really good out wide, but Texas's DBs are great. I don't see the Tigers running the ball very well. So it's going to be up again to Cade Klubnik to maybe make some plays with his legs or get off script and go do some stuff. For me, this game comes down to the Texas offense and if it can put a team away. I feel confident that the Texas defense is going to keep them in this game, keep this thing low scoring. If Quinn Ewers can get a run game, get some balance, and then go make some plays, Texas is a 10 or more point better team than this Clemson team is.
Yeah, I was going to mention, a lot of people criticized Quinn Ewers in the SC title game. And again, there have been moments this season where it's been valid criticism. They could not run the ball against Georgia.
Nope.
I think he did miss some throws, but also he had some drops in that game as well. I think that game, Texas is in that game because Quinn Ewers was the only offense that they had, right? I'm not saying he played perfectly. Again, he missed some throws as well, but I think one of those picks, again, I think he maybe threw it outside. He probably should have threw it outside, but I think Matthew Golden was a little bit weak in the pass attempt there. And I know that Isaiah Bond just let that ball hit him, and it was an interception.
Yeah, when I say Texas's offense isn't good enough to cover the 10.5 point spread, I'm not saying Quinn Ewers isn't good enough.
Right. But what
as a whole.
But what I am saying, and what to your point, is we know that Quinn Ewers has some mistakes in him, right? We know that Again, I don't know if Clemson's defensive line, pass rush in particular, is good enough to make him worry in the pocket against how Texas' offensive line has looked this season. So maybe that doesn't become a factor where he's it's a little bit hobbled, a little bit hobbled Quinn Ewers. I don't think that will come into play as much as like the A&M game in particular. But this game, you mentioned it, I do think that Texas' offense, let me put it this way. I think Texas' offense matching up against Clemson is good enough. But to your point, we've seen Texas play down to teams, right? And give them those opportunities, whether it's been Quinn Ewers throwing picks or the pass rush or the pass protection not being quite as good, the run game being inconsistent, right? There's been these little things. I'm thinking the Arkansas game, I'm thinking the Vanderbilt game where it's like
you can rattle off like 5 games.
Yeah,
at this
exactly.
point.
And like, is that just the Texas offense? And that might just be it at this point because we're in the playoff already. Carter,
I think that is the Texas offense. I think we know what this Texas football team is, and that's an elite defensive unit that's going to have to overcome some inconsistencies on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah. I like to, at these games, look at the implications for the head coaches with what a win means, what a loss means. I think for the loss, what it means for Dabo Swinney and Clemson is like your power is fading.
Sure.
You're not using the transfer portal
enough. It also
enough.
depends on how much of a loss.
How much of a loss, too. Yeah, but like Clemson kind of fell ass backward into the college football playoff. Yeah. For Steve Sarkisian, I think a loss in one of the first 2 games, either Clemson or Arizona State, is he next in line on the can't win the big one club?
I would say that it does start. I wouldn't say can't, but I would say there starts to become a discussion of when he goes against somebody his own level. Right, like because there's the Kirby Smart thing right now, where it's like, does Kirby Smart just have his number, right? Last year was like Kalen DeBoer. Okay, could he just not out scheme Kalen DeBoer when he gets to and so I don't think it's like he can't win the big one, but I do think there becomes a discussion of when he gets to somebody of his caliber of play caller or schemer, is he not able to best them? Now, obviously, he has the Saban thing in his pocket where it's like, we beat Saban, and that's fair, but I do think there starts to become a little bit, particularly when they're a favorite, against Clemson. Yeah. If they're a favorite against Arizona State, I think this draw doesn't help that perception. So I do think it comes back up. I don't think it's a major thing, but the draw doesn't help that potential perception.
Craven, I want to hear your thoughts on it too, because it might be too premature, but right now I think if there's a can't win the big one club, like Steve Sarkisian's kind of loitering outside and James Franklin's the bouncer, like, hey, are you in here? Or like,
this is my apartment.
Yeah, you're my apartment. Like what's going on here, Craven?
I don't see him in the Ryan Day, James Franklin deal. He's been able to beat his rivals. He goes on the road and beat Michigan. He goes and beats Alabama on the road. He wins a Big 12 championship. I think if Texas loses this game, especially in a way that it seems likely that they would, in which the defense plays well and just like the Georgia game, right, where the offense just can't do enough to go win this game, it becomes an indictment on Quinn Ewers and if he was holding the offense back.
I could definitely see that.
I agree with that too.
I could
You've convinced me.
Yeah. Alrighty. Let's move on to the next playoff game. The one that I would say is probably the tastier of the two.
Speaking of James Franklin.
Yeah, speaking of James Franklin, Mallory.
SMU taking on Penn State Saturday, December 21st in Happy Valley. You can watch it at 11 a.m. Central Time on TNT. Penn State, 8.5-point favorites. The over-under is 52.5. And Craven, I'll let you go first on this one because I heard that you are going to be at that game.
I will be at that game. Going to be cool to knock off that stadium.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm jealous.
You know,
that's a cool stadium.
SMU is. Have you been there?
No, I have not. I've just seen it many times on TV. Get my team crushed there.
I like the idea of your picture on the screen right now, Craven, in Happy Valley.
Yeah,
your stoic, stern
just
face
Photoshop,
picture.
Just Photoshop that with the white out behind it.
It's your profile
I just call it a valley.
Yeah.
I think SMU in that ACC championship game had the pressure of the world on top of their shoulders, and they played like it in the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they had to fumble. You saw some mistakes and flags. Clemson started 4 of their first 5 drives in SMU territory. It just, you know, from the press box, I remember thinking, you know, we may have just found where the game is too big for the Mustangs. Mm-hmm. And then they come back, they tie the football game, they lose by a field goal, but they're still in the playoff. I say that to say, what the advantage SMU has in this game is there is nothing to lose if you're a pony. Mm-hmm. All of the pressure is on James Franklin and this Penn State football team. The college football playoff was expanded for Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't win at home against little old SMU that used to be a G5 program and hasn't been good in 40-plus years, blah, 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 it's all coming down on top of his head. So I think if you're SMU, you get to go into hostile territory, biggest game in 40-plus years, lay it all on the line, you know, have the whole chip on your shoulder, everybody doubts this type thing, and all the pressure's on the other side, and that could be to your advantage.
I agree with that, Craven, but I do think SMU is kind of playing for ACC respect as well, and you saw that when Clemson is cheering for the Ponies in the college football playoff, even though they're suing their way out of the ACC. They were in the summer, so it's kind of funny how the tables turned there. Of course, that's an administrative thing, not the players and coaches. But what we talked about in the Sunday recap, Craven, of like the conference championship games have to matter because you have to follow the money, and they're about to share revenue and they need the money from the conference championship games. If SMU gets dog walked against Penn State, there's going to be a large contingent of SEC people, Nick Saban, Paul Feinbaum show of saying Alabama should have been in that game because they would have given a better matchup. And I don't know if the committee remembers that in years coming where it's like a 3-loss SEC team or an ACC team. Maybe I'm just way overthinking that, but I feel like that has to come into the psyche of future. They're playing for SEC respect.
Mm-hmm. I would say,
I think there's so much on the line that doesn't, you know, I don't think Kevin Jennings is thinking about that.
Sure.
Well, I know, yeah, Kevin Jennings is not thinking about that too, but I can.
I'll say this. I think there is an Empire Strikes Back coming, right? Whatever that form may be, whether that's only 2 buys and they adjust a lot of the seating when it comes to the 14 team or whatever. There's some reckoning coming just because that's how the SEC is able to politic their way. But I'll agree. I kind of side with Craven more. A little bit of the ACC they're playing for. Yes, they're certainly playing for respect. Because if Clemson and SMU get dog walked, right, all of a sudden it's like, oh, this team should have maybe just one bid, you know. Yeah. But to Craven's point, I don't think that's necessarily a concern for SMU. They're in, right? Mm-hmm. Like that they don't. Like they're not trying to be like we don't need to prove that we need to, but they're in. Right?
Season's a massive success already.
Right, exactly. Massive success already. They don't need to prove that they need to be in. They're just in, and now they can just play. And so to me, when it comes to Penn State, though, yes, all the pressure of the world is on them because they've played 3 good games or 3 competitive games. 3 games against teams of any caliber really.
That matter.
Twice against Ohio
State, Illinois, right?
Illinois, yes, and then Oregon. And they looked good against Oregon and Ohio State, but they couldn't win. And that's been the story. Like we mentioned, that's been the story of Penn State for years, was they're that second tier, right? They're the team, they're the Ole Miss, right? Except they were able to get in this year because the Big Ten was kind of down in a lot of ways as far as depth's concerned. Mm-hmm. So when you look at this game, it was a very funny dynamic that the game played with me on Saturday because this was going on at the same time as the ACC championship. and I had the ACC championship on my big screen, and then I had on the Big Ten on my laptop. And then by halftime, I was like, do I got to switch these games? Because I was like, is Clemson about to dog walk SMU? And is Oregon about to let Penn State back into this game? And sure enough, yeah, kind of. And I kind of had to keep both simultaneously on at the end. But the thing that worried me, I thought this was a game that SMU, again, I don't think they're going to win this game by a lot, but like this game all of a sudden does worry me now, because I think Penn State may just be a team that can't beat that caliber of team, but I do think they're a team that can take care of business against a team like not a team like SMU, but a team that they're on paper better than.
They rarely play down.
Right.
They never play up.
Right. That's a great way to put it. And in particular, this rushing attack is really good. Where Penn State loses games and where they've really struggled is when Drew Aller has to win them games. When they're able to run the ball like they were against Oregon, Drew Aller can just kind of hang back and just deliver what he needs to, and they're able to sail. But when Drew Aller's asked to pass 40 times a game, like against Ohio State or something, when it's kind of played in a phone booth, then yeah, that's when they kind of lose.
I think, and Craven, you back me up on this if you agree, but like the biggest matchup what Ish is talking about is SMU's defense and Scott Simons against Penn State's offense and Andy Kotelnicki. Like that is one of the best coordinator on coordinator battles, and it comes to the line of scrimmage at the trenches.
Yes.
Because SMU's rushing defense is first in the ACC, but as Ish mentioned, Penn State leans on that run game. Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton combined for over 1,700 yards. So, like, who do you think has the advantage there?
Yeah, I mean, coming into this season, we worried about SMU and their ability to kind of handle P4 football teams in the trenches, coming off of a 2023 season where they had lost 3 to Power 4 teams. To their credit, it felt like they handled Clemson okay. Like they played them to at least a draw up front, especially over the last 3 quarters. But yeah, I think this is going to be, kind of what are those guys up front, defensive line and offensive line. Abdul Carter's a really good pass rusher for Penn State. And you would think the advantage for the Nittany Lions is up front on both sides of the ball. If SMU can play them to a draw, I like their skill position guys. Like I think SMU can go score some points. I think SMU will be solid against the Penn State passing attack as long as they can make them one-dimensional. Penn State, it's kind of like the Texas offense, right? Like if Penn State is allowed to be balanced, then it's fine. You're not asking Aller to do more than he can. You get some favorable matchups on the outside, just like when Ewers has a rushing attack. But if SMU can make them one-dimensional, put that on the passing game, I think they do stand a chance to score with them. Because like against Clemson, SMU didn't score early, but it felt like it was just a matter of time. If they could stop kind of bumping their toe up against it, they'd figure it out, and they eventually broke through. I don't think a team is going to shut down SMU. It's just a matter of if that defense can hold serve and if they can get a better start than they had against Clemson.
And I think Penn State has a very interesting X factor, not even an X factor. He's like plan B, probably A of that offense, in Tyler Warren at tight end, because he's probably the best tight end in the country. He's probably winning the Mackey. What does SMU do with him, right? Do you is he too big for a McGill, right? Is he too big for a McGill? Is he too big for a Deuce Harmon? Probably, right? But is he too good of a pass catcher for some of those linebackers? So how they match up with him, and I trust Scott Simons to have a pretty good game plan for him, but that's plan A when it comes to the passing game, where it's like, how do we deal with that guy who's going to be probably a second-round pick, third-round pick or something? Because that's something that, SMU hasn't seen, but many teams haven't seen, is like a 1,000-yard tight end, reliable pass catcher, right? Even with Gunnar Helm in Texas, he doesn't have those numbers.
And we worried about with SMU allowing the explosive plays, looking forward to a hypothetical ACC matchup with Miami. Yeah. But Penn State is they're averaging 6.7 yards a play. It's 4th in the nation. Yep. So they are an explosive offense, even though they're very balanced. Yeah. And that's Bryant Wesco and Clemson having their number on a 35-yard catch and a 43-yard catch in that first quarter. So does Penn State have a dynamic wide receiver on the outside like Bryant Wesco? Is it all tight end?
It's all. I mean, I think Warren leads them by 400, 500 yards receiving. Yeah.
So they don't have to worry about a Bryant Wesco, a Midlothian legend out there.
That was awesome.
Exactly. I know. I was like, man, we're Westlake to Midlothian. Why are we getting cooked by Texas players? It sucks. But last thing on this, putting it back on SMU. I mean, that was the last 2 drives from Jennings.
He's got stones, man.
Not
Preston Stone. He's got Kevin Jennings.
They don't have Stone. He's probably out of there. But I think shout out Timothy Chalamet, who was on game day. I don't know if his team or whatever worked up some good notes. He mentioned he dropped Kevin Jennings as like an early Heisman favorite contender for next year. Those last 2 drives, I was like, I could see it. Like it's just like there's those moments where you're like, nothing flustered him. Like they got pressure on him. He was able just to maneuver a little bit out of the pocket and get and it's like, oh my God, like he can handle, like Craven mentioned, he can handle this Penn State defense, and I have no issue with him in this moment, right? Because I was looking at the weather a couple of minutes ago, and it's not. I was like, is it gonna be a chance of snow? I don't think so. It's like 20% at least this far out, but that's gonna be a cold environment. It's gonna be interesting. But like, if we've seen anything, that dude handles whatever is thrown his way.
I don't worry about Kevin Jennings going into Happy Valley and being intimidated by that environment.
I'm more worried about Craven in Happy Valley.
No, it's just the Valley. It's just the Valley.
Any last words on this one, Craven?
No. I mean, I do think Penn State's defense is really good. Mm-hmm. So, it's going to be up to SMU to get 20 plus on here, because it's asking the defense too much to shut Penn State completely down. They're going to need to score some points. They're going to have to beat them the way TCU beat Michigan, with a couple turnovers, score some points, get in the 30s or 40s. It's going to be a game.
Yep.
Bring up Parka.
Yes, seriously.
By the way, long johns.
How about the Texas games being 11 and 3 o'clock back to back? I love that.
Mm-hmm. So very nice.
Very convenient for us. All right, Mallory.
Would have been cooler if they played each other.
Would have been cooler if they played each other. Would have been cooler if it was too easy. State either, because we're gonna have to have that on like in the booth. So
I know.
We'll be watching. I don't know what time is that game. What time does that coincide with? What day is that? Saturday.
Yep.
So it's the big dogs. Okay,
the big dogs.
Yeah, we'll be watching.
Big dogs playing on big dogs.
We'll be watching Duncanville, North Shore Part 74. This game on the side screen. So, all right, Mallory, let's get to the
rest of the bowls. Yeah. Now we're just going in order by date. Yep. So let's get to it. First up, we've got. I forgot which one I put up there. Georgia Southern taking on Sam Houston Thursday, December 19th at 6 p.m. in the New Orleans Bowl.
Yeah, good little trip for Sam Houston.
The Superdome. Yeah. You can watch it on ESPN2. Georgia Southern favored by 4. The over-under is 46.5.
This is a fun game of who's coaching Sam Houston as far as
who's playing for Sam Houston.
Who's playing
defense,
for Sam Houston.
Who's coaching? Who's playing? I know Hunter Watson's playing, maybe.
Oh, well, you can count on Hunter Watson. He'll be out there if it's just him on offense. I could be his center. He'd still be out there.
I was very happy they got this bowl, because obviously it rewards them with a good location, right? I would hate for them to get like the Camellia Bowl. It's like, hey, congratulations, go to Montgomery. I don't know where Camellia Bowl is, but they get a cool location. They get a cool venue. This game, Georgia Southern, they've been very frustrating to me under a team that really made hay a couple years ago with Clay
Helton?
Clay Helton taking the job. It was like, oh man, like what happened? Is this the elevation of their game? Is this, they're ditching the triple option? How is this going to look? And they've been okay, right? I think it's I don't know if people give him enough credit for having to ditch a triple option history, right, and kind of have a new thing, but they haven't really set the world on fire that I think people expected, especially if when you get the USC head coach, you kind of expect them to be in conference contention, and they kind of were this year, but I don't know. For me, this sparks emotional game for Sam Houston that they could rally around. You lose your head coach, you lose your defensive coordinator. Let's just kind of rally around and play competitively. I don't know if they'll win this one, but I think this will be a close game, just because I haven't been impressed with what I've seen from Georgia Southern a lot of the
It's impossible for me to preview this game because I don't know who's going out there for Sam Houston.
Sure.
I mean, Craven, what are your thoughts on? Can we just talk about the job search, like going on? What's going on there?
I mean, that's a thing.
Yeah, let's just talk about. I think that's what everyone's focused on right now at Sam Houston.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from what I know, they want to get this done before the bowl game, and it's down to 4 or 5 names. I think that they're going to have a couple, on-campus interviews this week and then make a decision. I think Josh McCown is the big swing. I feel like that's not going to happen. He's on track to be, an NFL OC or head coach one day. I think he's going to stay at the NFL level, but they have been talking to him at least in an advisor role to kind of see what he thinks about it. Matt Pallard's defensive coordinator at Baylor is a name that I feel is legitimately in it. He played there. He grew up there. I know he would love that job. Tim Dowse is a coach that Carter's mentioned here. He's been at Sam Houston as well. And then I think Phil Longo is in it. I think he has a lot of friends still in Huntsville, especially in the alumni kind of donor base. They remember that offense. Hasn't been as successful at the Power 4 level, but maybe down a notch. That offense works, and he does have familiarity. And just from talking to people around the athletic department and Bobby Williams, the athletic director there, it does feel like Sam Houston ties are going to be a big part of this one. So those are some names as well. I think Sean Bell has been mentioned. His brother Brian played there. And so those are the 4 or 5 names I would think Sam Houston's going to decide between.
Is there also because I think of this in particular when it comes to Phil Longo and Josh McCown, is the ability to maybe supplement your own financials in some way an indicator as well of what they would maybe, again, not number one, but like, is that something that they're like, yeah, that's probably a nice number 2 priority for us?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's why you always see these colleges, these smaller ones, hire coaches that can call their own plays on one side of the ball, because you're trying to save money on the coordinator. I think it's the same thing here, right? The less you're spending towards the head coach, the more you can spend elsewhere. And for a program that's playing catch up, that has a press box to build, may not even be in their home stadium next year, probably not going to sell as many tickets and that kind of stuff, that anywhere that you can save some money is got to be a part of the decision. I don't think it's the factor, but I definitely think it is a factor.
All right. Yeah, I got nothing on this game though. That was it.
It's all eyes to the head coach. Sure.
Have fun in New Orleans. And the Superdome is going to be cool to play in too. So.
Yeah, NOLA is a fun bowl location to go to.
Oh yeah,
that is sweet.
It's great. Like when I've been for the Sunbelt's, the headquarters is based there, and they always have a lot of really good activities for players, which is typically, part of Bowl Week where they have sponsors or whatever. But New Orleans in particular, every time I went to Media Day or it was the Sunbelt tournament when it was there, they in particular were really good about getting the New Orleans experience when you were there. So hopefully if you're a Sam Houston fan, you can make your way out there because it is a good time. So.
All right, up next, it is the Myrtle Beach Bowl.
Sure.
Coastal Carolina taking on UTSA.
I'd be so mad if I was a Coastal Carolina player.
Why?
You're just staying home. It's just like, I don't want to go to a bowl to stay home.
Yeah.
It's kind of convenient, though.
Kind of, but if you already don't make the conference championship, at least send me somewhere.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, go Mallory. Who are they playing?
UTSA.
Yeah. Hey, look, that's a good trip for them. It's like they'll go to Myrtle Beach. Why not?
Yeah.
So
it's a great location, but if I'm Coastal, it's like we live on the beach. So
one of my biggest pet peeves during bowl season is when announcers are like, "Who said this team doesn't care about the Myrtle Beach Bowl? You want to tell John Doe, running back, that he's not fired up for the Wasabi Fenway Bowl?"
Yeah.
Jeff Traylor needs to win this game more than he needs his left arm to go 7-6 and not go 6-7. Like, I know this man is fired up for this bowl game.
That's very true.
You know what one of my pet peeves is? When I can't finish what I was going to say.
Fair.
Y'all can go.
No, it's cool.
Go
Mallory, go ahead. We're here.
Mallory, just
Monday, December 23rd at 10 a.m. Central Time. You can watch it on ESPN. UTSA is favored by 6.5. The over-under is 57.
That's too early, first of all. That's soccer time. Anyway. All right. So UTSA, look, Corian Barnes into the portal, right? I'm trying to think of any other. There was one defensive player that was pretty big for them as well. So, I don't think this is as bad as one team we'll get to later, but I do think Jeff Traylor, like you mentioned, Jeff Traylor wants to win this game, but I think Jeff Traylor's established a culture, a good enough culture to where they're not going to see the mass opt-outs, right? They see the value, especially for a program like UTSA, right? We'll get to some programs that if Sam Houston didn't lose their head coach, I think it would have meant a lot for those players too, to play in a bowl game. That's kind of what they are as far as this level, the G5, right? You kind of have to make your own moment and make your own significance with these. I have no idea really about Coastal. I think they're fine. Vasco opted out, so they're I don't know. I have
first two quarterbacks opted out. They're going to be on a third string.
I didn't even see that.
So UTSA is doing better on that department.
There you go. And they beat a Sunbelt program last year that ended up winning the conference this year, so they should be able to do the same.
Yeah, a lot of these bowl games come down to which team wants to be there more, and Jeff Traylor has never had a losing season in the history of his time being a head coach, all the way Jacksonville, Gilmer, UTSA. So he's going to be motivated. He also has a pretty young football team, and I think that helps as well. It's not, a bunch of seniors on their way out. Like, it's guys that are coming back next year. They're going to go through some practices. They've been beat up. They're going to take stock of that time.
Yep.
I'm with you though, Ish. 10 a.m. For a bowl game.
That's
like, my God, like, you get a trip and like you got to wake up at 7 a.m. to get ready for a football game. That's pretty brutal.
That's brutal. I will say the one thing that I am curious about from my perspective of media of covering this team is with Kavorian Barnes leaving. Okay, who's next up? Right, like this is kind of that. There you go. Like last year it was Josh McCown, obviously, and so it was like, okay, this is their opportunity to kind of see that next up. And somebody like Jeff Traylor, who was, again, probably preparing for probably next year without Kavorian Barnes to an extent, he gets to see him in live action for the first time. And you say, okay, do we have a guy or do we got to go get a guy? Mm-hmm. And I think, again, I'm not saying that's the casual fans' appeal of this game, but that's what I like to see, where it's like if I'm a UTSA fan or if I'm somebody that's covering UTSA, last year we saw the game, we're like, okay, maybe they don't got to get a quarterback for next year. Maybe they have one on roster. So are they in that same situation with running back after losing a guy like Kavorian Barnes?
I think it's what a lot of bowl games turned into. Yeah, it's just who's next up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think as a fan base, you got to look at it the way the coaches and the players do, and that's a early spring.
Yep.
And look at the bowl game like the spring game where you get a glimpse of kind of what your team's going to be like next year. And it's kind of half swan song for the guys who have blood, sweat, and tears for your program, their final game, but it's also kind of an introduction of 2025 and what that's going to look like.
Yep. Mallory, what's next?
Speaking of another really cool place to have a bowl game, Memphis, Tennessee, in the Liberty Bowl. Friday, December 27th at 6 p.m. Central. Texas Tech taking on Arkansas. You can watch it on ESPN. Arkansas, 2.5-point favorites. Over-unders 59.5.
Speaking of two coaches that are going to be playing to win this bowl game, Joey McGuire, of course, is fired up because he was a lifelong Arkansas fan, which I found out about when they got announced for this one. And, of course, Sam Pittman's trying to get as many wins as he can get.
Joey McGuire said that when he was younger and, like, you got your own line instead of your own phone, like, his extension ended with one hog.
Yes.
Because he was such an Arkansas fan.
Yes, very awesome. So, again, this is going to be one of the games. You always get a couple of these games where it means just enough, and the caliber of opponent is just good enough to where you want to go out and win this game, and it's a competitive game. I think this is one of those we lucked into where it's like Arkansas probably needs to win this game, right? It's great to go into the offseason with this now that Sam Pittman knows he's coming back, have some good momentum. Texas Tech, they're ending the year on a pretty decent note. You want to continue that in the offseason. You want to be able to show, hey, we still got our quarterback in Baron Morton, right? Whatever you feel about him, but like you want to be able to go into the offseason with momentum. I'm curious, does Taj Brooks play this game?
I don't see why he would, but also, I mean, this man loves Texas Tech.
I was about to say, he might. That's the other thing is like, I'm curious to see, is it Taj Brooks time or is it, we see Cameron Valdez a little bit, or what else this team looks like?
On that note, Joey McGuire does allow guys in the portal to play still. Like last year against Cal, Loic Fungee made a touchdown catch, was in the portal at that time. So you will see a lot of guys on Texas Tech who like could be a different school, but like Joey McGuire feels you've earned the right to play in this bowl game, finish out the season with us.
That's a good point.
I'd be kind of surprised if Taj didn't play, to be honest.
Really?
That may just be overestimating. But I
mean, he's that type of guy.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, he's that type of guy, to your point.
Right. Like, it just seems like a dude who's going to go out on the shield playing for Texas Tech. That just seems to be kind of in line with who he's been so far as a football player. Kind of like with Sam Houston, I think the big talking points around Tech right now are the coaching staff hires. Bringing in Mac Leftwich as the OC, Shield Wood as the DC. Probably not going to see a ton of that. I'd imagine some of the assistant coaches still there, kind of call the plays on both sides of the ball. But this is another, behind the scenes, you get 15 practices to do what you were talking about earlier, like see what the players that you have, who you like, who fits your scheme, who doesn't, and be able to get some cliff notes going into the offseason. You're in it too. I keep saying like going into the offseason,
you're in the
like they have to do it simultaneously.
Yep.
Craven, grade those hires for me of Texas Tech, going OC Mac Leftwich and DC Shield Wood.
Yeah, I mean, I put this on Twitter, and I really believe it. Had you asked me who the two most underrated coordinators were in the state of Texas, I would have said Mac Leftwich at Texas State, who doesn't get enough credit for what he does on that offense because he's paired with G.J. Kinney, and Shield Wood, who, I mean, that's a mixed match unit there at Houston that he turned into one of the better defensive units despite no offensive help over there. Just a really good young football coach. And, Tech's got money to go splash and take an in-state conference rivals defensive coordinator. They're not playing around, and those were two really good hires.
It's a very Texas Thanos move from Joey McGuire.
A little bit. No, I mean, I like it, right? This is they're flexing that they have money, right? They're flexing that they have pull. They're able to pull from the Big 12, and they're able to, of course, obviously pull from a G5 school. But it shows intention, right? He's like, we lose a guy. Okay, cool. We lose a guy to a head coaching job. We're just going to go get we're going to go get the other Zach Kitley, right? The other young, good coordinator with connections to the state. So I think that I'm very excited to see this offense at Texas Tech, because I think it's a little bit more of, in my opinion, melding with what Joey McGuire wants to do. I think that obviously you look at the Tech State offense and it's very pass heavy, but they've had a really, really good running game the past 2 years. And I think that Joey McGuire wants a really, really good running game. And that doesn't walk out the door with Taj Brooks, right? He wants somebody that can scheme that up. There may be a guy in the portal that can help with that. We'll see. I would put my money on that.
We will get to it.
But I love that marriage in particular. And Shieldwood, like you mentioned, the fact that he was able to do that with that Houston defense is insane. So, All right, Mallory, what's next?
Another fun place to play a bowl game in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Texas A&M taking on USC Friday, December 27th at 9:30 p.m. Central Time.
You want to talk about a team that does not care about this, USC?
No. You can watch it on ESPN. Texas A&M is 1 point favorites. The over-under 50.5.
All right. Is Maava playing in this game, or because I know Miller Moss is gone?
It's no longer Miller time.
It's not Miller time.
Oh.
It's Maava time. That's the thing. That's all I know about. And then Bear Alexander's in the portal for the 12th time. That's all I know about UFC.
I laughed when I saw that.
Yeah. Speaking of time, the Myrtle Beach Bowl is way too early. This is too late. 9:30 is crazy.
Come on. No, you're in Vegas. You know what you're up for.
Yeah, true.
You go to the strip and then you go to the game.
Yeah.
That's how it works. But speaking of teams that really could use, again, not saying that they're excited to be in this bowl game, right? They wanted to be in the playoff. But yeah, they're going to want this game because they want to evaluate maybe what they have at quarterback. They want to evaluate the wide receivers, even though we kind of know what is there, and they're kind of making moves already.
The wide receivers have been evaluated.
Mike, he's going to figure out which one wide receiver he's going to hold on to not push in the portal. But you also want to end the season on a positive note, right? You don't want to end the season with, hey, we lost to Texas and we blew our chance, and now in retrospect we would have been in if we would beat Texas, or even looking back at the other game that they lost to South Carolina. So this one's another positive note. It's rough, but if you would have told me that Elko's A&M would have had a chance at the playoff deep into November, I think they would have taken that. It's just the way it turned out. Obviously, it's a bittersweet pill.
Yeah, cool destination for A&M to go. What's that saying with I think the wide receivers have been weighed and found wanting.
Yeah.
We know what that is there. I do think that this is, and maybe internally behind the scenes, they kind of know what they're doing with Marcel Reed, if he's the presumed starter or not. But it feels like a big, important game for him to put a stamp on that job if it is his job to move forward. And then defensively, I don't think Nick Skirton's going to play. I don't think Shamar Stewart's going to play. Those guys are going to the NFL, and so it allows some young playmakers defensively that maybe haven't gotten a lot of run to kind of show and get an early, kind of like we were talking about with all these other bowl games, just kind of get your eye of your coach early on and kind of propel you into a solid offseason. Speaking
of quarterbacks, this is a revenge game for Texas A&M for USC taking their 5-star quarterback Hussein Longstreet. So,
this is gonna be that's a good point. I forgot about that. Yeah, that they completely. I don't know how exactly that played out because USC kind of let Julian Lewis walk, and maybe they knew they had Longstreet in the back. But that is an interesting note that I forgot, that USC stole A&M's presumed future starting quarterback.
Yeah, the answer might be Jacob Zeno. I saw on 3 getting crystal balled to Texas A&M.
We need to have a Get a Job episode on this show.
We should. That's a fun
hosted by Alan Bowman. With special guest Cam Rising.
Dang it, I almost said that.
Oh, God. By the way, he's at least not going to be at Utah next year, which I saw, which is at least a step forward.
Is he going to be in college football still next year as a QB coach?
No, he's playing again. Cam Rising I think he got his waiver.
I don't think he's taking it, though, I thought.
I don't know.
North Texas.
Save this for the Get a Job episode. Save this for the Get a Job episode. But long story short, yeah, USC may not care about this game because everybody's really opting out for them, and A&M, the only players really opting out right now are the ones that are going to the draft. So
USC's bad vibes right now.
It's very bad vibes.
Lincoln Riley had to publicly say, "I'm not going after the UCF job." So
I'm not going after the job that pays significantly less. I'm not trying to leave. Anyway, what's next, Mallory?
The New Mexico Bowl, Louisiana taking on TCU Saturday, December 28th at 1:15 p.m. Central Time. You can watch it on ESPN. TCU, 9.5-point favorites. The over-under is 61.5. Did either of y'all, I guess all three of you guys, did anyone look at this matchup and just kind of like scratch your head? Like, what?
A little bit.
Interesting. It's just an interesting matchup.
Sunbelt Big 12 was not on my
correct. That's what I'm saying.
bingo
That's what I'm
card.
getting at. Yeah.
Especially like the second Sunbelt team, the team that lost to Marshall. That wasn't really on my bingo card. So yeah, I don't know. TCU should win this one. I don't really have like a massive take on this one. Really, Louisiana's good, but like. Yeah, this should be an easy win for TCU.
So homecoming for Sonny Dykes playing in New Mexico because he went to third grade at Comanche Elementary. And so that's a cool storyline.
Sure, they're gonna have teachers lined up. It's teachers that are still.
You still feel his impact at Comanche.
90-year-old teachers that are still alive.
Craven, excellent call out by the way on Josh Hoover potentially leading Texas in passing yards when we did that episode at the start of the year.
Good point.
He's like top 10 in the nation with 308 passing yards a game.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, I got a few of those right.
Yeah. By the way, we were
that's
kind
too my own horn.
Yeah, I was about to say we were kind of right on a lot of things. There's a graphic maybe coming soon on how right we were in some situations, but
I wasn't.
No, we know
I was
you
not
were.
either, Mallory.
We have a podcast clip that shows that you. But collectively, we were pretty good.
We're gonna have we have a graphic coming out about how right we were, and it's basically how right Craven was, and I contributed nothing.
How everybody
to
else
that.
was wrong. Yeah.
Craven, as far as this game's concerned, for TCU, what are you looking for? Obviously, Louisiana, 10-win team, but of course they're in the Sun Belt, so a step below.
Yeah, I don't know. Some of these are tough.
Yeah.
I think TCU. This is kind of like the bowl games TCU used to play like 15 years ago, where they were to Louisiana and they would like go and just like stomp somebody in a bowl game that didn't care about it.
Right.
And so I think the Horned Frogs have to guard against that. And been recruiting pretty well behind the scenes from the high school ranks, but we haven't seen a lot of those young players. Like, this is an opportunity to see what the development is, going into 2025, or how much they have to portal. I think it's kind of the same song and dance for a lot of these teams.
Yep. All right, Mallory, let's move on to a game that isn't that quite same song and dance.
This one's interesting to me. I love this matchup. In the Texas Bowl, it's Baylor taking on LSU Tuesday, December 31st at 2:30 p.m. Central Time on New Year's Eve. You can watch it on ESPN. The line is even. The over-under 60.5. I'm loving this matchup.
Yeah. With honorary captain Kim Mulkey. Attendance, I bet. It's the Kim Mulkey Bowl.
That's a great point.
Kim Mulkey Bowl.
I'll say this, right? Obviously, LSU hates that they're in this bowl again because they're not in the playoff again under Brian Kelly. But
Baylor loves it.
Baylor loves it, yes. And LSU's going to want to win this game because they cannot go into the offseason 8-5 with a loss to Baylor when they weren't in the college football playoff picture at all, right? If they can go, I'm not saying everything's fixed with 9 wins, but the vibes are a little bit more manageable with 9 wins because they lose Bryce Underwood. The vibes are at an all-time low. They lose DeCorian Moore months ago. All of a sudden, you're like, where's anything, right? And if you go out and get dog-walked by Baylor, we got problems. We got capital P problems. So, again, I'm not saying they're throwing out their A team. I'm not saying this is going to be like the Super Bowl, but they're going to want to win this game. This is not a situation to where it's like we don't care, like a USC, where it's like we don't care, throw up our hands, season's over. Like, this is a thing if they get walked by Baylor.
I think Baylor, out of a lot of the teams we've talked about, non-playoff version, Baylor's maybe the most motivated, along with like a UTSA, to play a bowl game.
100%.
A lot of these teams look at these non-playoff bowl games as almost punishments, or just, a vacation you get to go on, like the game's secondary. If you had gone back to Baylor in August or after that Iowa State loss, and they're like, hey, you're playing LSU in a bowl game. Like, that's the biggest party they can throw. So I do think we're going to see a solid performance by the Bears here. And they have a lot of young players who, should be back and are going to care about them.
Something to watch for in this game is LSU quarterback Garrett Nussmeier is playing, even while he, hypothetically
weighs his draft decision.
I really like that decision from Nussmeier.
Sure.
I might go to the draft, but I'm going to play in the bowl game because Baylor's got a leaky secondary, and this QB class is not super strong. So you could vault yourself into like first round talks.
He did not end the year great. I think heading into the A&M game, he was considered like a dark horse, kind of rising first round pick, and then he kind of played himself out of that discussion. I like that as well because he's saying there's something to be played for, right? Shout out Flowerman Marcus. There's something to be played for, and he's trying to see what he can do because it's like if he can come out and he throws for 350, right, all of a sudden against a Baylor team that was surging, of course they have issues on defense in the secondary, but still a red-hot Baylor team, then yeah, you're going to take that and somebody's going to go, okay, there's the Garrett Nussmeier we saw in September. Maybe there's something there. So, yeah, I like this too because it becomes all of a sudden probably the best quarterback matchup out of these non-playoff games. So I'm very excited for this one.
I feel like NFL GMs are just begging for someone to like separate themselves from the pack.
Sure, 100%.
QB room. Other than Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward.
Right. No, 100%. I agree. I think we're going to see some reaches, and I think Garrett Nussmeier is one of those players that can make an impact. So that's what sets up this to be a pretty good game. And like Craven said, basically all these Baylor players are going to be back. So I'm very excited to see a small preview of the 25 team. All right, Mallory, what next?
Saving the best one for last. Email. It's the First Responder Bowl. North Texas taking on Texas State Friday, January 3rd at 3 p.m. Central Time. You can watch it on ESPN. Texas State, 9-point favorites. The over-under is 67.5.
Defending the crown, baby.
It's getting contentious in here.
What's our bet, Shmail?
I don't know. Do you want to bet on this team? You see what your team's doing right now?
Not really.
You want to put all your money on who's the backup quarterback for North Texas?
No.
Drew Mestamaker.
Mestamaker, that was the guy. I was like, it's not Cash McCollum. Okay, you sure? I mean, we can if you want. I'm trying to save you here.
No, it's fine.
All right, so here we can talk about some of the transfers and stuff like that. Big ones for Texas State, obviously Ishmati, who again I'd probably pencil in maybe as a trip to Lubbock in his future soon. At least a visit to Lubbock very soon. Josh Eaton, starting corner as well. And then for UNT, everybody that matters. Chandler Morris, DT Sheffield, who's the freshman.
Tyler Mercer.
Spuriel's in the secondary. Plenty more. So, yeah, we can kind of talk about the portal there. And then,
it's gotten so bad that the athletic director Jared Mosley is saying that we need reform, which I agree, honestly, but that's the state of North Texas right now. We need to reform this.
I agree, but he didn't release that statement when he was signing Skylar Cassidy away from Sam Houston. So, look, I agree. The system's broken. Don't get me wrong. But this goes back to my overall point of you have to make these games matter to players, right? If you're Chandler Morris, and Craven, you can, correct me if I'm wrong or anything, but in my opinion, if you're Chandler Morris, you signed up when you were the presumed starter of a team that went to a national title a couple years ago. You didn't sign up to play in the First Responders Bowl, right? You signed up to compete for a conference championship, and when you don't see that, okay, yeah, I'm going to look for my first chance to dip. And I know UNT tried to, from what I've heard, UNT obviously tried to make some matches to things he was hearing elsewhere monetarily. Couldn't. That's the game. But it's up to the teams until these bowl formats get reformatted. It's up to the teams to incentivize these players or to make these games matter because they are exhibitions, as we talked about, right? These are exhibitions that essentially don't matter unless you're a coach with an incentive, obviously, but these players themselves don't have an incentive. So I think it's up to the teams a lot of the time and the coaches to make these moments matter to these players other than saying, no thanks, I'm going to wherever.
Yeah, I mean, my only pushback on that is that, you're in that bowl and somewhat because of your play too.
Sure.
You had a part in a season you were part of the 5-1 team that lost 5 straight as well.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I'm always going to be pro employee. And so if these guys aren't on contracts and there's not much protection and it's not like Chandler Morris has this NFL future. This is probably his biggest money-making opportunity as a football player in his life, unless he wants to XFL, CFL, or something like that. And so, Carter and I talked to him earlier this year. It sounds like he didn't want to go into coaching. So this is kind of the last, hurrah for him, with football. And so, yeah, I don't blame him for looking around. I do think, Jared Mosley is right in terms of it's. I don't think the system is broken as much as the calendar is.
Sure.
If this just happened in January, or if we only had one portal and that was in May, at the end of the second semester, a lot of this stuff goes away. It's just having the offseason in the middle of the season that is frustrating.
Yeah, I think UNT is kind of in no man's land, at least for these first 2 years too, because Eric Morris's offense is going to show you out for where Power 4 teams are going to want to recruit you, but the defense is going to prevent you from getting anything higher than the First Responders Bowl.
I think that's a good point. I do think, though, this is 2 years now where I think it's been a uniquely North Texas problem, because you look at Texas State and you look at, I know Sam had some players opt out, but again, their head coach left, so it's a little bit different. I feel like if Casey Keeler was there, I don't think we see a lot of opt-outs for Sam Houston. I go back to a little bit of, I think it's on these teams to kind of make it matter to these players, because last year, UNT didn't go to bowl game, like the next day, half the team is in the portal, right? I think it's something about this year as well. The team goes to a bowl game and half the team's in the portal. Of course, Mahdi's out and Eaton's out, but you're not seeing Jordan McLeod leave. You're not seeing Terrence Burgess leave. You're not seeing Bo Sparks get in the portal. Chris Don, who may get in the portal. But I'm not saying they're doing something wrong, but I do think this is one program that has happened to back-to-back years where every single key position group player leaves.
But those guys aren't getting offers from Miami like Tyler Mercer's getting, or Kentucky like Jamori Macklin's getting.
Ashton Hawkins played the bowl game last year, went to Baylor like a week later. So I'm not saying like one team's doing it wrong, one team's doing it right, but I think there may be something more there as to why that's happened, particularly with UNT twice now. UTSA, right? We're seeing that. Kavorian Barnsley's, but like there's not Devin McQuinn's not, bolting to the portal. Like there's not a lot of these mass exoduses. I don't know if I'm not trying to say something about Eric Morris, but I don't know what the difference or what's different between those programs and why some players are leaving. And the only reason I'm mentioning is because it's 2 years now where it's happened, right? It's not just 1 year but it's like Chandler Rogers, the whole running back room, all that, the Jamori Macklin. So that's my thing is like, I've noticed it just with this program in particular, and I'm wondering why that is. I don't know if it's, to your point, I don't know if it's just like, hey, yeah, these receivers are putting up crazy numbers, I'm going to the SEC. I don't know. Craven, do you have any insight on that or idea, maybe speculation?
No, I mean, what's so hard about college right now is you talk to 6 different admins, 6 different coaches, and you get 12 different thoughts on the process and what the issue is and what the issue, because it's all different at each level.
Sure.
And it's different for the admins, it's different for the coaches, it's different for the players. I don't see how this, because for me, the thing that bugs me about these conversations is that the administrations talk out of both sides of their mouth.
Yes, 100%.
Just put them on contract.
Right.
If you put them on contract, a lot of this goes away, but they don't want to do that because they'd all have to take pay cuts.
Right.
And so until you're willing to take a pay cut, shut up.
Right.
Like that's where I'm at with this deal. Like we know what the solution is, and they just don't like it.
Yeah, and I was going to say, you mentioned the calendar, because I agree the calendar's broken as well, but this is also a solution, right? This year has been a solution. That's why we're seeing so many players enter. It's because they got 2 weeks now, right? It doesn't go to January like it did last year. So it's like, this was, quote unquote, one of their solutions was shrinking the window, but that's just expedited a lot of players leave. That's why we had 2 days of it being open. Then it seems like half the country's in the portal already. It's because I got to get it now because the market's going to set itself basically once, once the Tulane quarterback or something goes, all of a sudden the market's set everywhere for every quarterback. So Chandler Morris has to get his, and all this, Caden Salter has to realize, what he can get. So this was a temporary solution, but yes, I agree. The whole structure has to change monetarily. That involves unions, that involves contracts, that involves seeing them as employees, all that stuff. And until that happens, we're just kind of like, if we make the portal a week next year, okay, everything's going to happen in a week, and it's still the same thing. So, yeah. All right, so there's kind of that. I mean, I don't really expect North Texas to play that great in this game because everybody's going to be out. Jordan McLeod's playing his last game, so I'm assuming he'll stay in the game. We'll see, though. Obviously, if there's anything that can happen. I don't think he has any eligibility left.
We got to have a friendly rager between you and Mallory.
I would love to, but I don't want to do that because I don't want to put the North Texas's walk-ons as like the reason.
That whole conversation just depressed me.
Mallory, the normally so joyful Mallory is just like a shell of herself.
Braylon Braxton's coming to North Texas, and he's going to be fine. You're going to be fun next year, and if they don't make the conference title, he'll leave again, but it's fine.
Wait. Oh, also, did you see who entered the portal for Sam Houston? Braylon Wortham, one of their best defensive players.
Oh, yeah, no, he should be done.
Not entered the portal. He did not sign for Sam Houston.
He should definitely be UNT bound.
So. There's a lot of
that.
Sam Houston defensive players that are getting UNT offers
Correct.
right now. I don't know why that is.
Don't know why that is. It can only be a mystery. Honestly, just let him coach. Why not? Let Skylar Cassidy coach the bowl game. None of these guys are going to be on the team next year anyway. He's bringing in
one more time.
No, I'm saying let him coach UNT.
UNT? Okay.
Yeah. None of these guys are going to be on the team next year anyway, so it's like, who cares? Anyway, regardless, that was our episode. A bunch of bowl previews for you guys. Some of them matter, some of them don't. I'm going to probably be at the...
I'm going to watch them all.
Yeah, I'm going to watch them all. I'm probably going to be at the First Responders Bowl, even though I'll be seeing whoever's going to be giving water out at UNT's games next year, quarterback or whatever. Regardless... Thanks for watching this year. It was really cool. All these video, we had some upgraded setups. Credit to Mallory and the girls for getting all that. These upgraded cameras and upgraded audio systems and lighting, all this stuff. The new studio in general, obviously that was like a debut season for the new studio. So appreciate you guys. Of course, that you'll still be hearing us on everywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, all that stuff. But this will be the last video episode for the year. So we appreciate you guys watching on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you were. With that being said, Christmas is coming up. So, textfootball.com/subscribe if you want to subscribe to get all the content that Craven's going to put out from the playoff and the bowl games, and of course Carter from the games he attends /watches. Also, our state championship coverage, right? textfootball.com/state. Hold that URL. Don't visit it yet. Hold that URL for Sunday because something will be up, and we'll be very excited for what's coming there. And then, of course, Mike Craven's book, Dave Campbell's Guide to Texas College Football. Please buy that. Do it. Buy it. It was a very, very good project from Craven this past year that he spent all of last year working on and this spring basically writing. So definitely show your thanks to him and get yourself a little present of the gift of college football in the state of Texas as the holidays roll around. We may have some discounts coming on for that for the holidays, so keep an eye out for that as well. All right. Well, that was a fun season. Great season. We still got some games to go, games that matter to go as well. So Texas, SMU, we'll see how long we can keep going. Appreciate Mallory, appreciate Craven, appreciate Carter. Mike Elko, give us a call. I got some recommendations for, maybe some things going on in the bowl game. And of course, can I say go Rutgers, Mallory?
Yeah.
Okay. Go Rutgers. I don't know what bowl they're playing in, but go Rutgers.